everyone, and welcome back to Thorough Newspaper Analysis presented to you by LawSikho. So what are you wondering? Why does this page look different today? As we discussed yesterday also, and we wanted to introduce ourselves to you, today we would like to take a bit of your time to introduce ourselves to you, and also I would like to drive you through this landing page of this amazing judiciary test prep course, which is being brought to you by LawSikho. So herein, we will also be mentioning the link of this page, and you can anytime go and visit it. So before we begin with why do we need news analysis, why current affairs is so important for us, and so on and so forth, it should be known that when we are aiming to crack an exam as aspirational and as tough and daunting as the judicial services, we should know that current affairs is though a very important part of it, but yet it is only a part of it. But not to worry, we at LawSikho have been making continuous endeavors to bring to all the aspirants amazing courses, and specifically talking about the judiciary test prep course. Now, let's just discuss within a minute that what makes our course at LawSikho different from other judiciary courses or other kind of judiciary classes that are available for that matter. Firstly, we are excelling into providing personal guidance to each and every candidate. So every candidate will be given personal attention for preparation of their respective judiciary exam. This is not like a coaching center where hundreds of students in a batch sit and they don't even know each other, and even the teacher does not know the names of the students. Then we have strategies that are specifically working in making this exam not only easier, but also achievable for our aspirants. We obviously have the top-notch content, which definitely enhances the quality of this course. Then we have unique presentation of the content, as it must have already been noticed in our daily news analysis as well. Similarly, on a similar line, the other content also in our course is presented in very unique, creative and imaginative manner, which not only makes it easier for the learner to grasp, but also makes the entire concept very interesting to be known about. Next is speed reading friendly content. So we also help the readers to not only complete their syllabus within time, but also to do it at a faster speed. Smart study techniques, definitely. Special tools to make learning faster and easier. We have a great repository of past year papers as well as the bare acts that are presented in the downloadable format. Model solutions for past year papers, statistical breakup of past year question papers, question paper analysis of latest exams, live online classes, problem discussion sessions, practical insights, thousands of MCQs that are the multiple choice questions, regular tests for regular practice, personal evaluation of your answers, regular revisions, self-paced program wherein the aspirant can prepare at a faster pace or at a pace that suits him best. Solutions to queries through various platforms, the repository that we have for the bare acts, statistical analysis of your performance, all India ranking, language papers, essay writing, judgment writing, access to litigation courses, litigation trainings, special webinars. So you can see that if we would really delve deep into the qualities and the uniqueness of our course, then probably it would take the entire time that we have for the thorough news analysis. And so this was just a glimpse to give you the idea of to what quality of courses are we presenting for the aspirants at LawSikho. We would really encourage that all our viewers, they go and visit our official website for further more details. Now with this, let's quickly jump into the analysis for today. So welcome again and welcome back to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, and let's see that what articles are important from the Indian Express and Hindu. First, we will be discussing the article that has been titled as, Do We Need a Fiscal Council? So this is from the Hindu, and herein the author has talked about a possibility or the benefits or the demerits of having a fiscal council. We will be dealing about that in detail. Secondly, in the name of cooperative federalism. So this word federalism is definitely a very important part of our syllabus as well. But what do we mean by cooperative federalism, and how far have we been able to achieve federalism in our own country has been discussed. Third, Thoki Raj. Very recently, just yesterday or in the morning itself, it came up in the news that the infamous gangster Vikas Dubey, he had been encountered by the police. So the legal backing of this, or to say for the legality or the pros that are attached, or the cons that are attached to such kinds of encounters, have been discussed in this. Now, the next article is about what China's security law means for Hong Kong and the global internet. China recently has passed a national security law that will be applicable on Hong Kong as well. So we will be trying to understand the history of China and Hong Kong, and what does this national security law that has been passed by China means, and what impact will it have on Hong Kong. And finally, we have the very important news and flash column, wherein we'll be discussing the important articles, important short and crisp news that will be forming a good amount of content from prelims point of view. So as we also discussed yesterday, that now on, we will be trying to give the MCQs and a descriptive question in the very beginning of the discussion, so that the listener finds more interest in the listening activity and is able to connect more in regards to the question asked. So the first question, that is a multiple choice question, is the first PC Mahalanobis Award has recently been awarded to first Y.V. Reddy, second Urjit Patel, third Raghuram Rajan, or fourth C. Rangarajan. And then again, we have the descriptive question. Criminal justice system in India needs to be overhauled, garnishing deeper faith in the judiciary and other legal provisions. Extrajudicial decisions can never be a substitute to justice. In this context of the above statement, discuss critically the problems and the solutions to this issue. And now with this, we will be starting with the very first article that talks about having a fiscal council. Recently in news, or to say, just in this article, the author has said, and the author has talked about the current fiscal dilemma that the government is facing. And he says that currently the government is facing a dilemma with regards to India's fiscal stance amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Each one of us knows that since the time COVID-19 has hit hard on our own country, the economy that was already not in very good situation before the pandemic arrived in our country, unemployment rates were higher, unprecedentedly higher. In that context, after the arrival of COVID-19, the economic resources have strained even further. Adding to that, the author says that setting up a fiscal council was first recommended by 13th Finance Commission and endorsed by FRBM Review Committee, which was headed by N.K. Singh. Basically, what happens is that in India, currently, we do not have this body called as Fiscal Council. So this actually is still an idea that can definitely be brought into reality. But the idea of having a fiscal deficit was first recommended by the 13th Finance Commission. So till recently, we have gotten the 15th Finance Commission, but even before that, we had the 13th Finance Commission. And the idea of having a fiscal council was first introduced then. And this idea was very highly endorsed. It was highly supported by the FRBM Review Committee. So FRBM is an act which stands for Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. This was promulgated in the year 2003, and it was sought that this would be able to cure all the fiscal issues that we have, or all the fiscal dilemmas that the government has to face. But that is altogether a different discussion, wherein the success rate of this act can be discussed. But yes, Fiscal Council is not a new issue, but still it has not been implemented in India. Then next, the author says the demand has again arisen amidst COVID-19. So definitely, because now we know that there is a huge strain, and especially the health sector and the economic sector are at the verge, and government has to pay more and more attention on these two sectors. And definitely, even to maintain health sector, along with good strategy, what we need in hand is good amount of money for that purpose. So that is why after the COVID-19 pandemic, the demand for fiscal council to address the problem of fiscal dilemma has arisen. Now, next, what we need to understand is What is a fiscal council? Basically, it is a permanent body that would independently assess government's fiscal plans and projections. And for a better clarity purpose, fiscal anything, wherever this term fiscal is used, it simply means relating to the money. But then why don't we really use the word money? It actually makes it a more formal content, and it actually relates or denotes to the idea wherever money is related to the government. So wherever money is used by the government, spent by the government, or in any way, anything is done with any money, that is termed as fiscal. So basically, Fiscal Council is a permanent body that would independently assess government's fiscal plans and projections. Secondly, would put out findings in the public domain. Here, what would make a fiscal council different from any other kind of bodies that already prevail in our country is that it would not only independently, first of all, here are two words that should be noted. First, independently, that independent of any other thing above it. It would be assessing, it would put into scrutiny the government's fiscal plans. Once it has done this, it would put out the findings of its scrutiny in the public domain. Now this gives the public a good chance to analyze and scrutinize the government's ideas, government steps taken in regard wherever money has been utilized. This would definitely increase and enhance transparency in the governance. According to the International Monetary Fund, about 50 countries worldwide have established the fiscal councils. So, in this, IMF has already told that 50 countries in this world have already gotten their own fiscal councils, yet it is also claimed that the success rate of these is to be discussed. It can vary depending on the conditions of that particular country, but yet it is a concept that has been accepted. Then, next we need to understand is that why does India need a fiscal council? Keeping in mind the economic strains or the economic challenges that we face or currently have been facing, the author says that there could be some very specific areas where fiscal councils could turn into a boon. It could be really good to have a fiscal council. Now, in what way? First, independent and expert assessment of government fiscal stance, aiding informed debate. As we had already discussed, that it would be one of the aims of the fiscal council to do. So it would be possible that now an independent and expert assessment of the government's fiscal plans, fiscal projections could be done. Then independent assessment of the union government's fiscal performance and compliance. Added to this, it would recommend changes to fiscal strategy, because definitely if the fiscal council would face and it would realize that there is some kind of lacuna in any fiscal policy, in any fiscal plan, then definitely it can give up, it can give its own suggestions to, for that matter, for better implementation of such policies. And then finally, it would improve the quality of fiscal data. So definitely what we would have in hand finally would be an improved quality of fiscal data and probably a better and more efficient use of the resources, economic resources of the country. So with this, we are done with the first article and jumping towards the next one, which talks about cooperative federalism. Before we delve deep into this discussion, we need to understand the meaning of these two terms. Basically, by cooperative, we mean anything that works in collaboration, that is cooperation, and anything that works with each other and not against each other. And secondly, by federalism, we mean where there is division of power between center and states. Now, here is a question for you all. If you can answer this, definitely put it down in the comment section below. The federal structure of India has been taken or has been inspired from which country? Now with this, we would deal about this concept. Many state governments and opposition parties have criticized the union government's policies towards the state to be anti-federal in nature. What has recently been seen is that the power, which was earlier meant to be distributed between the center and the states, as suggested by the meaning of federalism, but nowadays, as recently, this power is seen to be concentrated more at the center, at the union government. And so these states have been every now and when complaining about the lessened margin of power that now they have in hand. Secondly, which actions of the union government are considered anti-federal? Obviously, now we need to understand that what actually is making these states think that the union government is acting anti-federal, or to say that the actions that are being taken by the union government are not in the spirit of a good federalism that India used to enjoy. According to the 14th Finance Commission, accepted in 2015 but not implemented properly. So what happened was that 14th Finance Commission was accepted in 2015, and it talked about giving more power and specifically talking more economic power and more economic independence to the states. But unfortunately, this has not been implemented properly as yet. Then, Center for Policy Research says that a gap of rupees 6.84 crore between the fund recommended and fund received by the states is existent. Now, again, we can see that the Center for Policy Research, it explicitly says that there is a gap of rupees 6.84 crore, which is a significant gap to see, that exists between the fund that was actually promised to the state that it would be given, but it has sadly not been given. In 2014 and 15, states spent 46% more on programs and projects than central government. We know that there are various kinds of schemes, various policies that are promulgated and that are brought into life for giving some benefits to some particular class of people. For these, the government has to make some spending. Now, depending upon what kind of policies these are and what people they are aiming at, either the union government spends on them or the state government spends on them. This also depends on what subject that particular policy is dealing with. If that subject falls in the union list, so definitely the union government would be spending upon them. And if that falls in the state list, then the state governments would be spending upon them. Recently, in 2014 and 15, it has been noted that states have spent on such policies as we just discussed. The states have spent 46% of more amount of money as compared to the central government. Now, this is again contrary to the previous statement wherein it was said that states have less funds, they're given less funds as compared to the central government, but yet states have been more capable in spending that fund for betterment of the public. And in 2019-20, states spent 64% more than central government. And now this ratio, this percentage has further increased to 64%, wherein states have spent 64% more than the central government. Another thing that is very interesting to note here is that even after spending more than the central government, the state's fiscal deficit has been exceeded. So the center's fiscal deficit exceeds state by 14%. Now, basically, fiscal deficit is simply, it is the difference between the amount of money that is collected by the government, it could be now in the form of taxes, cess, etc., and minus the amount that is spent by the government. For example, if any government is able to collect 100 rupees through its taxes and it has to spend 90 rupees out of them for some kind of policies or some kind of public actions or public use, so the left money, that is 10 rupees, would be the fiscal deficit. In the same regard, many a times the government is earning or getting only 100 rupees but has to spend more than 100 rupees. Now, in this situation, the fiscal deficit goes to a minus situation. Now, here, it is said that center's fiscal deficit exceeds states by 14%. Ideally, what should happen is that states, if they're spending more than the central government, should have a larger fiscal deficit, because definitely, as compared to the money that they're getting into their own hand, they're spending more comparatively. On the other hand, the central government has not been so efficient in spending the money, thus its fiscal deficit should be less. But it is just the contrary, just the opposite scene. Then the PM CARES fund that has recently been launched due to for the cure or for pooling in money for the cure and help of the COVID-19 sufferers and victims has also been asked to to be brought under the ambit of RTI, so that the spending that is being done through this fund can be made transparent and people can be aware of the benefits that have been availed through this fund. But yet again, this has not been brought under the purview of RTI as yet. Then next, implementation of GST. Now, this very next thing that was just done after the 14th Finance Commission was that GST was implemented. After the GST came into force, the government had to face a huge setback in the collection of their revenue. But they were promised by the center that they would be given the amount of money that they had to lose out on. Compensation for December 2019 and January 2020 were paid in June 2020. Now, here this can be noted again that the compensation that was for the loss that the states had to bear because of the implementation of GST, this compensation was paid instead of being paid in January and December right away. It was paid in June, about 5 months later. Following the pandemic, all union ministers have cut expenditure. That definitely is evident. And affected crucial rural development projects. Now, what happens is that the most stricken or ravaged projects are the ones that work for rural development. And when there is lack of money on the part of state governments, these are the projects that are most affected. Now with this, we need to know that what are the effects on the states as we just talked about. What happens is it increases in fiscal deficit recommended by this gross state domestic product by FRBM Act of 3% might be breached, allowing only flexibility in the form of escape clause. This actually means that there is an escape clause which is available in the FRBM Act that the state government can have a fiscal deficit that could be about 3%. So recently, the fiscal deficit that the states have is about 2%. But even in such a scenario where they had to spend so much on the COVID-19, this has not been relaxed. This needs to be made a bit more flexible so that the states can find it easier to spend in such situations. Now let's discuss about the next article for today, which talks about reform in the criminal justice system. Very recently, the case of encounter of Vikas Dubey, who was a very famous gangster from Uttar Pradesh, has been seen in news. But the recent incidents of police violence in Uttar Pradesh have raised demands for police reforms, because many a times people tend to celebrate such encounters thinking that a gangster has been removed from the society, and police has played a very proactive role in killing down such a person. But if we think intricately and if we think keeping law and legal aspirations in our mind, what do we think? Such encounters are legal? Do they actually back for legal findings? This has to be really thought upon. It has been reported that UP police in February 2018 had conducted 4 encounters per day, killing 40 people. This has to be really pondered upon, because encounters are not actually something that are very general. These should be exceptional. But in the case of UP police, in February 2018, such high rate of encounters was noticed. This is a case, People's Union for Civil Liberties versus State of Maharashtra 2014, and in this case, Supreme Court gave guidelines on encounter. Thus, in such cases, it should be made sure that these guidelines are followed if at all an encounter has taken place. Now, next we need to understand is that what are the important factors to consider. First, in a liberal democracy, there is no place for extrajudicial killings. Definitely, when we, being one of the largest democracy of the world actually, and having such a beautifully set judicial system, and yet if we celebrate such extrajudicial killings, be it of a gangster or be it of an innocent person, such extrajudicial killings have no place in a liberal democracy. Secondly, any excuse, example, judicial infirmity, for such killings are not justified. Now, many would say that cases of such gangsters would just be lagging in the courts and there would be no chance that justice could be given. But still, this can never ever be a reason for such extrajudicial killings. Being Indian citizens, we need to have faith in the judiciary and the judicial system that we have. And thirdly, the belief that unleashing state strong arm tactics is required for establishing law and order must be questioned. Now here, whenever we think that crime has to be curbed or the levels of crime have to be put down, what is most generally seen is that the state and the state authorities tend to become overly strict. But this needs to be thought that can this strictness actually make a change, or can a proper moral and societal change can actually bring the desired results that we are looking forward to? Then, why none wants police reforms? Though we are talking that criminal justice system should be reformed, as very recently in a session, just 2 sessions back, we discussed that how the criminal laws in India need to be overhauled. Similarly, police reforms have also been a long issue of discussion, but there are still some entities and some people, some groups who would not want such police reforms to take place. Now, who could they be? First, general public. Maybe this seems very confusing right now, but yes, there is a class of public, there is a group of people who actually scared and who actually are afraid of such police reforms and who do not want even more power to be given to the police. The author says that the police being the most distrusted institution and reforming it is believed to be empowering them. Generally, what we tend to see is that people do not really trust police. They think that this is one of the most corrupt areas, corrupt bodies of the government. They mistreat and ill-treat people. Though not all of these contentions might be true in all the cases, but yes, some cases of such brutality have also come forward. In such a scenario, general people, they fear that now if this distrusted institution is given more power, then it would tend to more exploitation of them. Secondly, the government. How come the government? Police is an instrument of political power to channelize patronage. All of us know that police is an institution that actually has to take care of the politics and the political heads and political leaders. Now, these are the very political leaders who actually use this police system and the corruption that is prevailing within for their own personal gains. Now, this should be thought upon that who would now bell the cat, because if this is the very body that is having the highest or that is availing the maximum benefit from such situation of the police system, would they really take the pain to bring in some kind of reforms in the police? It should be thought about. And thirdly, the police itself. So what happens is that more policemen are killed on duty due to negligence and poor working conditions than the number of civilians killed by the people. Now, that is why many times police would believe that having such reforms would actually enhance to their issues, and there might be a chance that they are given less of opportunities or less of resources than before. So maybe the police also feels more comfortable in whatever way they are surviving, and only due to this, there could be a chance that they seek out to some kinds of reforms. Now we need to know that who must take up a role in such cases. National Human Rights Commission, courts, and people at large. So when we say that such extrajudicial killings should not be supported and encouraged in a liberal democracy and in our own society, at this time, the NHRC that looks and takes care of the human rights of all the citizens of the country, irrespective whether he is an innocent man or a gangster or a murderer or anybody to say, but still he ought to have some human rights. Thus, Human Rights Commission should take an active action, an active role in bringing down and discouraging such events. Then further, of course, the courts are the one that have the responsibility of dispensing the justice. And definitely, it should be left to the court itself to take care of such cases and to dispense justice in the best form it can be available. And at last, people at large, people like me and you, all of us need to be responsible and should not celebrate such extrajudicial killings, but understand that why such killings are taking place, what can be the better things that could be done to make police people, and other authorities more powerful and bringing down crime and corruption. With this, we will be discussing the last article for today, which talks about Chinese security law in Hong Kong. Recently, after China passed the national security law in Hong Kong, major technology companies have suspended their responses to Hong Kong governments requesting for not sharing data with Hong Kong police. Before we delve deep into this and try to understand about this idea of China, Hong Kong, and the dispute between China and Hong Kong, we can very easily recall that since a long time, since more than a year or two, the protests in Hong Kong are very famous. All the international news cover the protests in Hong Kong, but what are these protests for? In 1997, Hong Kong became finally free from the United Kingdom. But before leaving, it was made sure that it was handed over to China, yet some rights, mostly the economic rights, were to be enjoyed by the UK till next 50 years. But on the side of Hong Kong, they did not want to be left upon any other state or any other rule anymore. They actually are demanding for their own democratic setup. But definitely China does not want to let it go. And recently, China has passed the national security law, which will be curbing and which would actually put a check on various kinds of data sharing and internet that is working in the Hong Kong. Now, what is the new national security law? The new surveillance and censorship rules could subsume the Hong Kong territory into China's Great Firewall. So this national security law has the capacity to bring into the ambit of China's great firewall, Hong Kong as well. But before that, we need to understand as to what is China's Great Firewall. As we can also see in this picture over here, this Great Wall of China has been drawn, and the tech giants like Google, Facebook, YouTube, Gmail, etc. are left outside this Great Wall of China. So, analogically speaking, China's Great Wall simply connotes to a combination of legislative actions and technologies enforced by the People's Republic of China to regulate the internet domestically. Now, as we know that various apps, various tech giants that are flourishing all around the world don't even have the permission to enter China. That actually is done by China's Great Firewall. So this is the boundary that these entities are not able to cross. And if national security law is done the way it is to be, then Hong Kong would also come within China's Great Firewall. And so the People's Republic of China, the party over there, would be successful in curbing the internet and the use of internet in Hong Kong as well. Then Hong Kong police have been given extensive controls to censor internet content. They can even track people online and seize electronic records. It is done to the gravity that even a fine up to $13,000 and even imprisonment for 6 months can be awarded to any person who violates this law. Then criminalizes 4 activities. So this act, national security law, which has been passed by China, would criminalize 4 activities: secession, subversion, organization, and perpetration of terrorist activities, and collusion with foreign country or with external elements to endanger national security. So anything, any act, any activity that could actually bring into danger the national security of China, because China also believes that Hong Kong is a part of China. So bringing all together, if any activity to do either to secede, to subvert, or to organize, perpetrate any kind of terrorist activity, it would be it would be punishable under the law. Next, we need to know is that how have the tech companies reacted to it? So the companies have to decide whether to accept the new data sharing and censorship requirements or not. This article has used a very good term, which is written as splinter net. So the author basically says that such kind of acts actually try to split the world apart. The author says that wherein at one place, the internet is seen to have capacity to bring the entire world together, Such laws, as we can see the national security law as passed by China, will be bringing into account what we will be knowing as the splinter net. This actually has been created by merging two words, split and internet. So this actually is trying to split the use of internet. So this can be quoted in any of our essays, mains answer writing, wherever this kind of question has been asked. Now with this, we finally jump to the news and flash. First, the first PC Mahalanobis Award has been awarded to former RBI Governor Rangarajan and former Chairman of National Statistical Commission. Secondly, it's about the quorum for virtual meetings of standing committees. So as we know that we have these standing committees, recently the Rajya Sabha Secretariat has clarified that quorum for virtual meetings was only required when the committees sit to take decisions or adopt reports, and such quorum is not required, and in the absence of chairperson can suspend the sitting or adjourn sitting. Simply, it says that the quorum, the basic quorum that is required for the standing committee, is required only when such standing committee is taking any particular decision or is adopting any particular report, and this is not to be required in the simple and general routine deliberations. With this, we end today's news analysis. We hope it was an informative session for you. Do check out our judiciary course and various other courses that are available at LawSikho. Thank you so much.